Good evening and welcome to the December 2nd, 2015 meeting of the Milton School Committee. Before we begin, please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Turning to the agenda, the first item on the agenda is the agenda for this evening. We have one change to the agenda, and that is the removal of approval of vendor warrants, which is under item 7, so we'll be removing item 7B. And without objection, we'll approve the agenda for this evening. Seeing none, the agenda is approved. The next item is citizen speak. Unfortunately, our minute taker is under the weather tonight, but I understand we have one participant for citizen speak, Michelle Connolly. Michelle? And if there's anyone else, you can let me know after Michelle.
Hi.
Good evening, Michelle.
My name is Michelle Connolly, and I'm the co-chairperson of the Special Education Parent Advisory Council. And initially, the reason I'm here today in particular is because it is a very special day. It comes with a heavy heart in light of the events that just took place today at the Center for the Developmental Disabilities out in California, but still the same. This day, it's celebrated nationally, and every year since 2005. And it's in honor of legislation that celebrates its 40th anniversary, which is in late November. So I'd like to wish you all a very, very happy and healthy Special Education Day, December 2nd. This day was created to celebrate progress made since the federal government enacted its first special education law, known in 1975 as the Education of Handicapped Children Act, or as we well know it today as the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. For those not familiar with IDEA, it essentially ensures students with disabilities have the right to a free and appropriate public education, just like all other children. Not only that, it requires this education be provided in the least restrictive environment, meaning schools must teach students with disabilities in general education classrooms whenever possible. When I was looking through the website, I thought the U.S. Department of Education wrote something really great about the 40th anniversary of this landmark legislation, and I'd like to read it to you. In adopting this landmark civil rights measure, Congress opened public school doors for millions of children with disabilities and laid the foundation of this country's commitment to ensuring that children with disabilities have opportunities to develop their talents, share their gifts, and contribute to their communities. In the last 40 years, we have advanced our expectations for all students, including students with disabilities. Classrooms have become more inclusive, and the future of children with disabilities brighter. Significant progress has been made toward protecting the rights of, meeting the individual needs of, and improving education results for infants, toddler, children, and youth with disabilities. In 2015, we celebrate the 40th anniversary of the passage of Public Law 94-142. While tremendous progress has been made over the years, we must continue the hard work and address the challenges that still exist. Although we are able to help many individual students to achieve their goals, we must strive to ensure that all children have the support they need and to find ways to meet each student's needs within the context of each school. So on a personal level, I am hopeful for the future in Milton. It looks bright. We've done a lot of amazing things in working with Leroy and Mary, and then Mary and Janet, and Tracy Grandow is just a great addition. We met with you, Mike, and a lot of great things are happening. The social emotional curriculum, much more transparency in the district. Parents are really understanding what the guidelines are. The inclusion task force that I'm hoping that we can form fairly soon. And our work together in training and development with the presentations that we have been able to offer the whole community. Glenn Pavlicek has been a big help in letting us, setting that all up so that educators, parents, and specialty service providers and administration can come and learn about students' individual needs. And that's all students, so that we can become a more inclusive environment. So happy education, special education day to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for that. And certainly, as you mentioned, particularly on this day, I know all of our thoughts are with those who are suffering out in California, with those people and their families, and we hope for the best on that score. Let's move on, unless there's anyone else for citizen speak. Seeing none, let's move on to item 4 on the agenda, which is the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Chairman Zulus. I'd like to invite to the table a very positive second presentation to join us at the school committee table, our athletic director, Alex Campier, and our girls track coach, Tom Shaw, and our girls track team. Will you come right up to the table?
If they just stand behind the table.
You can orchestrate them behind the student athletes behind you, Tom. So I really don't know how you're going to go on with your meeting after this recognition tonight and these announcements, but it is with great pride that I turn over to our athletic director, Alex Campia, who then turn over to Coach Shaw.
Well, we have some very exciting athletic news that we certainly want to share with everyone. Some well-deserved recognition that all of our athletes have accomplished this year. Gentleman to my left, Coach Shaw, has been selected as the Boston Globe Division II Coach of the Year in cross country.
Wow.
So at this point in time, I'd like to have Coach Shaw introduce his team. Having coached these young ladies all fall, they did a great job competing, having had an opportunity to see them compete. And I'll turn it over to Coach Shaw, and he can take the mic and introduce his team.
Thank you.
Well, let me start by saying, this is the 2015 Massachusetts Division II state champions standing right behind me. A very well-earned honor that they worked very hard since June for, and it's just really proud to see them get this kind of result from all their effort. It's really a special group of girls, and I feel very fortunate and lucky to have had the chance to lead them to this year. It's just been, I'm still on a cloud from it. It was just a special day for a special group of girls, and I guess let me introduce them one by one. We've got Bridget Mitchell, Sabrina Nigerian, Clodagh Corcoran, Naomi Nagasi, Colette O'Leary, Elise O'Leary. Standing behind her is Ruby Baker. In front of her is Ella Afanato. And then hiding behind Ella there is Allie Balash, Emmy Shuey, and we have Madison Girolf. And right behind her is Grace Dwyer. And this is the 2015 Massachusetts Cross Country Girls State Champs. And I also want to specifically recognize Colette O'Leary and Bridget Mitchell. They are Boston Globe and Boston Herald All-Scholastics for cross country.
Would you share with us, Coach, or maybe two of the student athletes about those last couple of two competitions that they competed in? Highlights?
I guess I'll take charge. Unless you got- Well, so the last two meets, the Division IV championship was a meet. We had not won that meet since 1998, or the state championship since 1998. And as many of you may remember, those are the years when the O'Neill twins were running for the school. And one of the things that I'm excited and proud of with this group too is they know the history of the program. They know about the teams before them, and they know the legacy that they left behind. I think they're all proud to be part of that legacy now. But the Division IV championships, believe it or not, there's never been a Milton girl that has been a Division IV champion or divisional champion in cross country until this year. Colette O'Leary is the first Milton female athlete to be a division champ, so I'll give her a little round of applause. And going into the All-State Championships, which is the state championships the week after, I always tell the girls, it's nice when you go into a competition and the competition is tough, because when you go into a tight fight, tight competition, whether you win or lose, you usually feel something great after, because it took everything you had to get the end results. And going into that all-state meet, the team we were going up against, the #1 contender with us, matched up really well. And that's always exciting because it's going to be a tight race, and no matter what happens, you're going to give your best and you're going to come out feeling good about it. In the end, at the All-State Championships, the score was, we won by a bigger margin than I would have expected. And I told the girls, this has happened all season, sometimes we make winning look easy. But I'll tell you what, there's nothing easy about what they do when they're racing. Those girls, they're running as hard as they can for 20 minutes every time they go. And so to an observer, it might look like, oh, wow, that didn't look so bad. But I'm sure if you saw the expressions on their faces after every race, you might be like, oh, that was really hard. Anyway, just really proud of them. And they pulled it out under, at the state meet, that's when the pressure's the highest. And, in those situations, you learn something about yourself. And certainly when the stakes were the highest and they needed to be at their best, they rose to the occasion. And I think, they learned something about themselves that day that they can be proud of for the rest of their lives.
Well said.
Well, once again, all the thoughts that Coach Shaw just expressed go into making a successful season. And I see how hard these girls work on a daily basis. And they pound the pavement pretty hard all week long to get to that meet. So once again, a well-deserved recognition to those young ladies and the entire team, so congratulations. But I have other good news to share because we've had a terrific fall. Some other all-scholastic news that Walker Stroud, who was placed placed 4th in the state in golf, Walker Stroud is being recognized as a Boston Herald All-Scholastic as well, so congratulations to Walker. Mike Fallon is also our quarterback in football, is being recognized as an All-Scholastic in the Boston Herald and also the Boston Globe, so congratulations to Mike Fallon. And we have another Coach of the Year, Steve Dombrowski, who I informed earlier today, has been selected as the Division III Coach of the Year in the Boston Globe. So congratulations to Steve Dombrowski. The entire fall season has been very exciting for all of our athletes, all of our school community. We look forward to the winter season because it's here already as the kids just started working out and trying out this week. So congratulations to these young ladies, all the support that they get from the school, the administration. It's been terrific. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Anybody want
Yeah, if anyone has any questions or comments? Mr. Walker? Oh, Mr. Walker.
Well, congratulations. 17 years is a long time. You ought to be pretty proud of yourselves. Anytime you're the best in the state at anything, that's an achievement that you should all be proud of. And I know that while there are people who place in different places, that each of you plays a role because you push each other in practice day in and day out, and that counts for a lot. I just wanted to say I saw the future about a year and a half ago. It was one of the races that's up at the Cunningham Park. I usually walk the course before the race, so I was back. And I settled in and was looking for my colleague, Ms. Padera, who usually finishes first, but it didn't happen. Colette and Bridget came flying up the road. Ms. Padera was nowhere to be seen. So I knew then that something was special, and Mo was there. I said to Mo, wow, I think something's happening here. So congratulations, and we look forward to more championships over the next few years.
Ms. Varela?
Yeah, I just wanted to know, I know, Colette, you're a senior. Is there any other seniors? Who else is a senior?
Colette's not.
Are you only a junior? Are there any seniors? Oh, yeah. Oh,
We have two more who aren't here today.
I just was wondering, do you think you might want to run in college and school? Yeah? That's great, that's great. Yeah, I just was wondering. Oh, so you guys are young. That's good for us. Okay. That's all.
Anyone else? Yes, sir, Mr. Sullivan.
Go Cats.
Ms. Padera?
I think you should get the boosters to sell those jackets in the school store, because I think there'll be some more interest in the cross-country team. I'd just like to say, I think I was talking to our friend Moira Downs, who's not here tonight, but cross-country is different. Some people don't know what it is. It's distance running, but it's much more intense and difficult, and you guys know that because you don't get your own lane. You kind of are in a big field, especially at the beginning, and it takes a lot of fight and a lot of aggression, and the courses sometimes are pretty rough. So it's a really tough sport, and it's not just about running fast. It's really knowing your position and running together and strategy. And obviously you have a good coach that's been leading you through that and helping you with those strategies, but you're listening and doing the right things. So it's so great that you guys accomplished this year, and that you worked as a team to do it, and that you are going to be, most of you are going to be together for a couple more years, because now you know what you're doing, and it's going to be hard to let that go, so you're going to have to hold on to it. But I want to congratulate you on your season and congratulate you on going to New York, because I think that was a fabulous experience as well. And, just because you don't get to play in like Gillette Stadium doesn't mean that it's not as exciting of a thing, especially some of these, like I said, there's just nothing that I think is more exciting than starting on the big field with a huge group of 300 runners and that gun going off. I think it's one of the most exciting things you can say. So congratulations, and I hope you have a great season next year. I'm looking forward to it.
Ms. Bagley-Jones?
I was looking at my phone, not because I was being rude, but before I left the house, about 45 minutes ago, I got this text. Kristen, want to tell you as a parent how grateful we are to Coach T. Shaw for the program he's created for girls cross country, and then the name of her daughter, which I won't say, is fortunate to have developed as a runner with his guidance. And then she went on to say, what a coach, whatever. But I thought, oh, this is so ironic. As about 45 minutes ago, I got that text from a parent. So, and then to hear what you were awarded and what the girls got was just fabulous. So you're appreciated.
Dr. Donahue?
So I'll add my congratulations and encourage you to enjoy this for the entire year, because you earned it. You certainly earned it. And as my colleague Ms. Padera said, there are definitely lessons in long-distance running and in cross-country running, and they will stick with you throughout your life. And please keep them with you. It's important.
Well, congratulations certainly to Mr. Stroud, Mr. Fallon, Coach Dombrowski, Alex, yourself, Coach Shaw, and most importantly, congratulations, girls. What a performance. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank thank you so much for having us. We've had some just great support from the community of Milton through this, and it's just been a wonderful trip for all of us, and thank you so much for having us.
And before the team leaves, on behalf of the Milton Public Schools, we couldn't be more proud of each of you. And what amazes me, the entire school thinks that they're out there running with you, and they support you. And to Ms. Bagley-Jones's point, these coaches, parents understand, and we appreciate. Tom Shaw is a phenomenal physics teacher, and to have you working with these student athletes and leading this program, we are indebted to you and so appreciative, because you are changing lives. And every one of you student athletes, we are so proud of you. Congratulations, and be proud of yourselves.
Nice job. Yeah.
Next, the preliminary debate field trip approval form. I'm going to ask Assistant Superintendent Sheehan to present this to you.
So I think that through the superintendent's email blasts and other communications, that most of you are aware that our debate team has had a very successful season thus far. And the coach, Casey DeToli, has submitted a proposal for the students to have an opportunity to compete at the national level. The proposal, I noticed earlier, states in the educational objectives that it's the University of Texas. It's really the University of Houston. There's another reference to the University of Houston elsewhere in the proposal. So they would like to participate in what they call the New Year Swing Tournament at the University of Houston. And they're very excited about it. They have noted in the proposal they would like to bring approximately 10 to 12 students. They would have 2 adult chaperones. They would miss 1 day of school and have an early dismissal the day of travel. The itinerary would be a Thursday as a travel day, Friday and Saturday are tournament days, and Sunday would be travel home. They have included a description of safety points for chaperones, and also included in these in the bullets on number 5 is also how they plan to have adult supervision throughout the field trip. They have submitted, well, they have not submitted a budget, but they have submitted a proposal for fundraising. They have raffle items that have been donated by the Dropkick Murphys. They have one item that is a signed jersey that I guess belonged to Bobby Orr. They're excited about this raffle. They think they will raise a lot of money. They're also taking advantage of setting up a Donors Choose page. They anticipate that through the success of the raffle and Donors Choose that students would have to pay about $200 for their lodging and transportation. They have included procedures for emergency notification and how they will inform parents through meetings. And this is a preliminary proposal at this time, and we will keep you abreast of any changes. I think the only thing that's not included really is the detailed budget of the trip.
And this will come before us for final approval at that
Yes.
point? Ms. Bagley?
2 questions. Did I miss it as to who the chaperones are? Casey Talley is one,
And
and
Rich Garino.
oh, great. Okay. I just wanted to know who the chaperones were. They parents and how it was. And then the other question I had is, and I know field trips like this do cost money. I just would be concerned if there was anybody on the team that couldn't come up with $200. Is there a backup plan for making sure that everybody could go?
Yeah, it's not something that I have discussed with
Okay.
Casey, but I can't imagine that any
Yeah.
that we wouldn't allow a student to
Right,
go
right.
because of
I
that, for that
just-
reason.
yeah.
But I will bring that to her attention and get more specifics.
It was interesting to that point, Ms. Bagley-Jones, that last year when they went out of state for a debate competition that wasn't as far as Texas, the amount was $200 last year too. So we will follow up though to make sure individually that everyone has the opportunity to fundraise to the maximum capacity that we.
Thank you.
Shannon, I don't expect you to know the answer to this, but maybe we can flesh out. I notice under educational activities, it's listed as Cougar Class New Year's Swing. Maybe we can flesh that out at the final stage, because it's hard to decipher what that is. But,
Yeah, there is a partnership between the University of Houston and a local high school in Texas.
okay.
So I'm not sure if that's their mascot, but
Oh,
they do
okay.
have a partnership, and this is actually the Honors College that is providing this opportunity to students across the nation.
Mhm.
So I believe, I did look at the, I did look at the program.
So you actually do know what the Cougar Class is?
Well, so it's not what you think.
There's a couple words in there that I think Mr. Zulus is
I understand.
All right. All right, just more fun than we should be allowed to have. Anything else on the, so so we have a vote for the preliminary approval? So I guess I'll move for preliminary approval of the debate field trip, January 7th through 10, 2016, for the debate team. Do I have a second? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, second.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Point of order.
Yes.
It was my understanding that this was just for information, that we would vote when we have a budget, which would certainly be my preference, but.
I think we vote, and I'm not sure this as I see it here, but I think we vote preliminary approval, and then we vote final approval as well. I think we're.
It's not listed as a vote, but.
Oh, it's not listed as a vote on here?
No, there's no vote on it.
Okay. So I think we are required under the policy, and we can dig that out and check on that. But I think we're required to vote the preliminary approval based on the items that they've listed here, and then we have a final approval when they actually raise the money and come up with the budget. So I think we need to approve unless I see we're checking the policy here, but I think we need to have a preliminary approval in order to take it to the next step.
So while they're looking at that. So this is just to approve the general nature of the trip and what it will be for, and an estimation of kind of what they're going to be doing.
This is
That's it. And then the final approval would be the budget and finalizing some of these things, like the detailed orientation.
That's right,
Chairman
yes.
Zulus, given that the field trip is planned for January, the policy does note that it should be approved 30 days in advance.
Right.
However, they really just submitted it recently, so
Okay.
I hope that will be okay with the committee.
Yeah. Dr. Pavlicek?
Plus, our policy for out-of-state or overnight field trips has an exclusion, which says that they require prior approval except for those required for student participation in tournament competitions or contests. There is an exclusion in our policy for sort of last-minute arrivals. You get invited to a tournament at a time when there isn't a school committee meeting. So I don't think that 30 days is an issue.
Right.
The policy itself says that there's preliminary approval, requests must be submitted in writing to the principal and then forwarded to the school committee. And then final approval requests have the more detailed itinerary and description of how the safety plan has planned adult supervision, detailed budget are in the final approval. The policy is a little unclear of what exactly gets voted. It just says they're all submitted to the school committee.
Well, it sounds like it's a request for preliminary approval.
Well, preliminary approval requests must be submitted, so.
Right, so this is a request for preliminary approval, so I think we need to respond to the request, and then we'll be able to respond to the request for final approval. So, given that, the right,
I have a question.
Sure.
So, on this particular trip, I mean, I would feel differently if we find out the cost of the trip is $100,000. And, which leads me to the question, do we have a budget for field trips?
No,
No.
we've left it in reply to that question to fundraising and presenting in front of the school committee the amount that we expect students and families to contribute. And then to Ms. Bagley-Jones's point, just like athletic fees and clubs and activities, we work with individual families.
Just one more
Yeah,
follow-up.
please.
So, and this is to you,
Yeah.
if we found out that the budget might be higher than we thought, and the fundraising has not been successful, what happens?
Then we can withhold final approval. I think the preliminary approval, as I understand it, is prior to the budget, prior to the fundraising. Final approval is after the fundraising, so that you know you have the funds. So this outlines the plan, outlines the 11 points that are in the policy that need to be responded to, and outlines that for us, and we approve that preliminarily, and then they go out and they fundraise, they get the money, and then we have the opportunity to finally approve it. And so my presumption is that this will come before us either in late December or early January for final approval, at which time we'll know how much money they raised and whether they can meet the budget. Dr. Pavlicek.
The policy speaks to actually having the final fundraising plan in effect at the point of final approval. It doesn't actually speak to actually having received, actually raised the funds. Because this is paid for through the student activity fund, because their student activity proceeds that they raise themselves, they can actually raise some money after the fact. Okay. It is allowed, but I mean, they would have to have the layout of how the fundraising is going to occur for the
And
final approval.
I think what you're hearing from the committee is that the committee wants to be comfortable that
Right,
we'll
that
have the
there's money.
funds, and that the funds will be raised, and that we'll have an opportunity to review that. Ms. Bagley-Jones.
I believe in the past, when we were concerned about the cost, we put in an amendment or something that said approval if this is what is raised, or that if the price is not more than this, because it's about a month away.
Yep.
So if people are going to be out there fundraising, they have to be pretty assured that they're going on this trip.
Yeah.
So I think I would want to see us approve it, but I agree. I don't want it to then be like, ooh, it's $1,000 per kid.
Right.
Like,
Right.
you know, that would not be good.
And I think that's my assumption. I wasn't here when the policy went into effect, but my assumption is that that's the purpose of the two-stage process, to say, okay, we approve this generally, and then if you go out and you raise your money, or you have a plan to raise the money, then we finally approve it. So that's my assumption as to why we have that two-stage process. But Ms. Varela?
Right, so, but my only question to that is, I get all that, but just timing. So
Right.
this tournament is on the 7th of January. So we're meeting tonight, and we're meeting on the 16th. So would the second process be on the 16th, and they can guarantee us by the 16th that it's really only going to be $200 based on all the fundraising by then?
That's my assumption, either the 16th, or I think we have a meeting the 6th. So they would have to come in, or the administration would come in at that point and say, look, here's our budget, here's how we plan to raise the money, here's what we've done so far. We want to take this amount from student activities and then replenish it in this way. I mean, that's what I would expect to see on the 16th or the 6th.
Well, the 6th is pretty tight, though. I mean, they'd be leaving
Certainly
the next
is.
day.
Certainly
I
is.
mean-
And so, certainly is. And so that means it'll be up to the administration to do on the 16th, you know?
Yeah, okay, all right, yep.
So I will move for approval, a preliminary approval of the, how shall I articulate this?
It's already been moved and seconded.
Oh, it's been moved and seconded, thank you.
By
All right,
you.
is that all right? I know, I thought I moved it, I didn't know I got through it.
Seconded by Ms. Badell.
All right, thank
Clarification
you.
though, but
Ms.
it is-
Bagley-Jones.
It's saying preliminary based on the 200 is in here.
Correct, correct. Preliminary based on what we have in front of us.
Got it.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous.
Very briefly, this is a different item than we usually present. Very briefly, across the state, there are special ed collaboratives. School systems join together, and for children with special needs that might go out of district to a private special ed school, but there are these collaborative schools that are closer to the communities, and there are collaboratives across the state that also we contract with sometimes. We might have to have testing done, and we don't have an individual with the skill set and the credentials, and we would contract out through a collaborative. And so for years, Milton has belonged to CHOMS. The acronym stands for Canton, Holbrook, Avon, Randolph, Milton, Stoughton, and Sharon. In my history in the Milton Public Schools, Randolph withdrew from the CHOMS Collaborative. And over the years, the CHOMS Collaborative, they work out of schools. When I was the principal at Cunningham, a CHOMS classroom of elementary school children, they used Cunningham space, and children from all these districts and districts in the greater Boston area came to the program. We have been a member of CHOMS, but always reminding you that through the school building project and the initiative and support of this school committee and the community, we've built programs within the district that Milton students are going to programs that years ago they went to collaboratives and private placements. And so we're down to a very small number of Milton Public School children participating in the CHOMS collaborative programs. And we're finding that where our parents, when they go out and they select programs, there are 2 other collaboratives in the greater Boston area that our families are selecting to send their children to through the IEP process, and we're accessing them. And so I asked you, through Chairman Zulus this year, you heard that we're participants, full-fledged members at no cost. What happens if you're a member, you get a reduced fee for the student tuition in the CHOMS when we send children to CHOMS. So we're in CHOMS this year, but I'm going to be sending you a packet, and under Chairman Zulus's tutelage, he asked me to frame this tonight, that according to their contract that I'll send you, I'm going to ask for your vote that we're going to withdraw from the CHOMS collaborative and enter into another collaborative. So at our meeting in the 16th, we'll be able to discuss in public. You'll be able to ask questions, any questions before. I would welcome, I'll send you a packet within the next 2 days that will really detail and outline this. But I think Chairman Zulus was right. Rather than sending it to you cold, I'm framing that I'm going to ask for your vote. And the most important thing to you and to the community is that no child's education will be impacted by this. And I think that educationally and in the special education world, that it will be a good decision for the Milton Public Schools. So I'll be sending that out to you. And lastly, very briefly, we might as well have brought the debate coach here tonight. We're talking more about debate. The other day, our Milton High School debate team competed in Lexington. Approximately 21 students attended. 6 Milton teams won 3 or more rounds and qualified for the state tournament. The next debate, they'll be traveling to Lincoln-Sudbury Regional High School. So very, very exciting news on a flourishing debate team at Milton High School. Other very exciting news, Pierce Middle School, under the leadership of Nancy Warren, has begun a Model UN program. I couldn't be more thrilled that Pierce Middle School students traveled to Northeastern University, and I'll detail this in my email blast and tweet out that we had students who placed, and we have students who have been invited based on their performance at this Model UN to the Greater Boston Model UN Association that only is an invitational competition. Tomorrow night, the FAA and Massport are sponsoring in the Winchester Auditorium here at Milton High School a forum, would you call it a forum? From the publicity, a forum on public meeting on airplane noise tomorrow night, Thursday, December 3rd, and many of our parents and citizens in the town have asked us to spread the word about that forum tomorrow night. If you're not at the forum, Ms. Padera, do you want to share the MFE meeting details?
Yes. So the MFE is having their kickoff party for to get started on working on the celebration every year. Everybody knows about the celebration most likely. Between 7 and 8:30 at the BID Hospital in Milton. And this is a great way if you want to find out more about this organization and what they do and get involved early. We need a lot of people to help out with this event. It's a big event. And even if, you're interested in finding out more and maybe taking tickets at the door, I know many of us have been involved in big jobs and small jobs around this table. Anyone can speak to this, but it's a great organization. It's a lot of fun. It's a great way to get to know other people in town, maybe outside of, especially if you're an elementary parent. It's a great way to get to know other elementary parents in other schools, high school, middle school, elementary schools. A lot of people have been involved in the schools for a very long time. I would really encourage everybody, if they just want to find out and meet some people, to come to this event. There's no strings attached if you come in. I'm sure they'll like you to sign up for things, but you certainly don't have to. It's just a great way, fun way of getting to know about the event and what they need.
And the little backdoor story is that Curry College and Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital are big supporters of the MFE, and they want to do more than just monetarily support the Milton Public Schools. So they are thrilled to be opening the Nangeroni Center for the MFE meeting tomorrow night. And Peter Healy, the director of the Beth Israel Deaconess Milton Hospital, is thrilled to be hosting this event tomorrow night. Tonight you saw that you were difficult parking. There is an evening on college information night, financial aid, and there'll be another meeting on December 9th for Milton High School College Information Night at 6:30 in the Charles Winchester Auditorium. In closing, part of my mid-cycle review, a few issues had been brought up, and Leroy Walker had offered to come up with a charge of how we're going to adapt the student learning goal moving from MCAS to POC. He took his homework literally and on time, and take note, the next day, and sent this charge. Members Kristen Bedley-Jones and Sheila Varela offered to meet with Leroy Walker and myself. I'm going to survey you tomorrow and come up with a time. We were going to go over this charge, and we were also going to deliberate how the SMART goal of gauging if 100% of the teachers are reading, understanding, and implementing the IEPs, we could achieve that goal. So if I survey the 3 school committee members and we come up with a time convenient to all of you, either on the 16th or the first meeting in January, bring back that detail about my evaluation. So thank you, Roy Walker, for doing that homework for me. And that concludes. And one other note, in your green packets, again, getting better at doing homework, we debrief every school committee meeting with questions that you've had. So Sheila Varela had asked about a road map coming up in PAC. So before and after every meeting, we debrief these. So I'll bring to your attention questions that you have asked, whether we put the answers in an email blast. We have separate, we're going to start doing monthly cable TV shows, or we answer your request for information at these meetings. So if we skip anything, don't hesitate to let us know. Thank you.
Ms. Varela.
Before we stop talking about the happenings, I was just asked by our student government advisor to let you know that this past week before Thanksgiving has been very successful for the student government. We had the homecoming dance last Monday night, which raised over $2,000, which is good. And that's going to events like prom and other school events that are happening in the end of the year. And then on Tuesday, we also had a very successful pep rally, which the student leaders did a very big fundraiser, raising money for homeless children. They made over $400 for that. So we just wanted to keep you updated with the student government, and we've kind of finished our pep rally and beginning of the fall activities, and we're going to head into the winter, and we start our anti-bullying campaign very soon.
Awesome.
That's great. Do you think, Ms. Varela, it would make sense to add to the agenda, to every agenda, a student government update? Or is that?
If you'd like. I mean, that was kind of like a main one, because that's the first half of our year is really homecoming and pep rally, and it's a lot of work, so
Yeah.
we just wanted to let everyone know it was
Well,
successful.
periodically, if you have something, we'll just put it on the agenda, student government update, and we'll just put it on the agenda, so we'll,
quarter?
yeah, maybe every month or every couple of months. We'll make sure we keep that, get that on, and if we don't, speak up. All right?
Thank you.
Great.
May I tell you
Please.
one thing? Ms. Varela, I'm going to tell a little secret to the viewing public. Principal Jett said it was the best pep rally he's ever been to.
It was very
Great.
fun, yes.
Great.
Congratulations.
Great.
A lot of work.
Next item on the agenda is the chair's report. I don't have anything particular, and I actually, I was going to mention the FAA meeting, but I feel the number of times I've stolen Ms. Gormley's thunder, she has now responded and stolen mine, so she reported on the FAA meeting. So I don't have anything other than that under the chair's report, so we can move right on into item 6, which is the Health and Wellness Subcommittee report. Ms. Bagley-Jones.
Thank you. So as you all know, and I'm sure the viewing public knows, we've been working hard on the Health and Wellness Committee, Subcommittee, looking at the data from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey and trying to, and that was reported out by Mr. Jett and Laurie Stillman at a recent meeting. We took the charge and went back at our last meeting and brainstormed several really what I think are great ideas, right, Janet? We came up with some great ideas. But before we talk about the action plans, I just want to remind people that there are some very positive things that happened, that we found out about as a result of this, as well as some concerns. One is that Milton students are less likely to bully. They're less likely to they have lower rates of cyberbullying. They're less likely to engage in violence. They have lower rates of sexual assault and dating violence. They're less likely to drive drunk or ride in a car with a driver who is drunk. They're less likely to smoke cigarettes. They're less likely to use hallucinogenics, ecstasy, heroin, or speed. They're less likely to use prescription drugs, and they are less likely to be given, offered, or sold drugs on school property. So I think that's a pretty impressive list of the things that they do well. There are obviously a couple areas of concern identified. Milton students self-reported some instances of concern, a little bit higher than in other towns or across the state. One is the rates of alcohol use were higher, and also binge drinking, which is a real health education issue that we need to hone in on, is higher in Milton than in some other towns. The rates of marijuana use are higher in Milton, and also just to not let the substance abuse issues take over, the rates of depressive symptoms also have a higher self-report in Milton than in other towns, and that's something really important for us to key in on. And there was also a higher rate of self-reporting of risky sexual behavior as connected to alcohol. So we're doing a lot of things really well, and we have some areas of concern we need to work on. Here's what we had a lot of brainstorming, and then between Janet and I, we tried to put it into sections of what we're trying to do, but the overall agreement was we need a multi-pronged approach regarding communication for the message to be effective. There's not one way to do this. There isn't one way to advertise it. We need a multi-pronged approach. Students need to help shape the message for it to be heard by other students and by parents and other town residents. The student's voice is really important in this, because you know what's going on, and we don't. Coaches, team captains, we talked about the importance that they have in this, and as well as the student leaders to change the culture, especially around drinking. We really have to work with parents in a non-judgmental manner, but we have to educate them about their responsibility. And this is a hard thing to say, but some of what has to happen is parents have to look at their own drinking. They have to look at how much alcohol and where it's kept that's in their house, because that's where a lot of the alcohol comes from, the kids get. They have to look at their prescription drugs. They have to know what they have in their house, and that's a hard thing to say to other parents, but it is one thing that has to, and we also have to look at the health education in our schools. So that was what we had some overall agreement on. The specific tasks are, the first one was, Dr. Spalding talked about, do we need to do a self-assessment of what we already offer? Just like we do for humanities or English or math, we look at it from K to 12. Is our curriculum aligned and articulated from a K through 12 perspective? So that's one thing that the school system may move towards. We know there are many things that kids are doing well and that we're doing well, so what's making us successful in those areas? We need to capture. Why are, in all these areas, we're doing really well? What are we doing well there? And how do we replicate it in some of the other areas? A while ago, a number of years ago, we had a cutback on health education. We did get some back in the middle school. Maybe that's not enough. Maybe we need more, and that's what the data will talk to us about. We need to look, we talked about in our health education classes, are we covering all the concerns that the Youth Risk Behavior Survey data uncovered? Probably are, but I don't know that. We didn't know that, so we want to look at that. Are we teaching students about peer pressure skills and how to reduce some other behaviors? I see some agreement over there. We also realize that there is a big perception out there, not just in Milton, but everywhere, that marijuana is not harmful because it's legal. So we need to talk about how it is harmful and what are some of the impacts of it. Right, Dr. Donahue?
Yes.
You can talk about that. Because it's decriminalized, kids say, well, it's not that big of a deal. Social norms we've talked about. You know, there are many kids that don't make these choices, so how do we reach those kids and find out that? We agreed we need to start at a young age, not just around substance use, but also about depression and anxiety. And, you know, work with our educators and our nurses and our coaches about all that. Almost done. Partnerships, so the first one was just looking at our assessment. The second one that we were in agreement with was partnerships. We can't do this work in a vacuum, and it's also something that the school can't do on its own, and nor should it, because it's a town-wide issue. We have a very strong relationship already with the Milton Substance Abuse Coalition. Did I say that name right? Milton Substance Abuse Prevention? I always forget one word. Yeah, we have a strong relationship, but I just forgot. No, but we do. And we're planning to continue and expand our interaction with them. We are in the initial stages of planning, of co-sponsoring a town hall type meeting, which, by the way, I went to one Laurie Stillman did many years ago when my kids were younger, and that's where I learned about you lock up your alcohol or get rid of it. I learned that from Laurie Stillman at a town hall meeting. And another voice, as I said earlier, that's crucial to have at the table in these plannings of these partnerships of the students. And we really need students to step up to talk to the community about it versus us talking to the students. But you also need to help us plan the message of how we reach the other students. The Clergy Association has always reached out to us around these issues. As Ms. Gormley said earlier, Beth Israel at Milton Hospital has always been very supportive of our efforts, and we want to keep doing that. The third thing was, and we don't really have this fleshed out, but the health committee talked about doing some type of focus groups. Students, parents, maybe teachers, nurses, and coaches. In small groups, people talk more often. In large groups, it's harder to talk and say things. So I don't really know how we would do that. We'd probably partner with the Substance Abuse Coalition for something like that. And then one of the last things was events and speakers. And we've had this, Ms. Gormley, this conversation several times. We have a wonderful speaker, a wonderful event, and we have 40 people in the audience. So we get frustrated because we want a lot of people to be there. So we just talked about the importance of really carefully planning what we do and really just trying to focus in on that, some of the issues that we talked about. I mean, I think a lot of kids and even parents really don't know the physiological impact of binge drinking on somebody. So we need to really offer some education about that. We talked about involving Chief Wells, you might be a little busy right now, in a state of town address, chemical health awareness nights. And then one of the last things is parents are the really crucial impact in this. We agreed, Janet, what was that thing you came up with? Parenting is hard, parents get on board. Yeah, and just trying to say to parents, you have so much you can do without us being harsh or judging or telling them what they're doing wrong. And it's not going to be easy for parents to do what we're asking them to do, which is to really think about all of these things. Student activities, we hear a lot from the kids and from other people. There's nothing to do in Milton at night if you're not playing a sport. And I know the Substance Abuse Coalition is working on that, and I said I would join with that as well. And then just the publicity. We've got to do other ways of publicity, cable shows, all the other things that we do, but we have to really get the effort out here. So sorry to go on for so long, but it was a really powerful brainstorming session, I thought, where we came up with a lot of really good information. I know Ms. Padera had to miss that meeting because you were at that conference, right? But Mary and Janet, did I leave anything out of that last discussion?
It was pretty comprehensive.
Well, it's, I think we've done so much work on this health committee, and these issues are real, but there are a lot of strengths that don't always get reported or talked about, and it's important.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you
Yep.
for thank you for the depth and the breadth of
Thank
that
you.
report, because it's very helpful, and it's, sounds like a lot of good ideas and a lot of things that I'm sure you won't lose track of, and then we'll make happen. So,
Thanks.
That's great. That's great. Oh, Mr. Walker.
So I would echo the chair's comments. Sounds like a lot of thought has gone into this. I think just a technical question for you or for the chair. I think the next step would be for the Health and Wellness Subcommittee to formalize some recommendations for approval by the school committee before we launch into action.
It's the prerogative of the Health and Wellness Subcommittee unless otherwise directed by this committee. So I would just ask Kristen if that's what she intends, and if that's what she intends, I would say it's their prerogative to do it, and I don't think there's any need for us to. So, Kristen, to you.
I mean, I think, what I want to be clear about this, these are all things that came out of our brainstorming session. Doesn't necessarily mean we're going to do all of them. I need to sit down with Mary and Janet and go over them in more detail, and with the whole Health and Wellness Committee, but these were the general areas that we thought were really important to try to focus on. Policies, we would come back. Budget, we would come back. Like, we need more health educators or something, but I don't know.
So it sounds like that you'll come up with a plan for
Oh, yeah.
going forward. But
One of the points I raised was that it would be helpful to get some outside expertise. Ms. Stillman volunteered, I think, when
Yep.
this was presented, to come back to us, to the school committee, to talk about best practices and strategies that might be working on a national level. And I'd still like to hear from the Substance Abuse Coalition as well.
So does it make sense to make sure our efforts are coordinated on this, to make sure that, Kristen, you work with Lori, maybe at your subcommittee, and then present jointly here? Or I just want to make, it'd be nice that it's coordinated
Yeah.
rather than.
Yeah, and we are coordinating it. We're working on 2 different leaflets. We're working on a town hall meeting together. But, absolutely.
So do you think, Kristen, maybe along these lines, maybe it makes sense to target sometime early in January or some, I don't
yeah.
want to put any pressure on him, it's a lot.
No.
But target sometime in early
Yes.
January or February for maybe you and Lori to come back and
Right.
to report.
And also Carolyn Kinsella and Vicki McCarthy, who are both on the Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition, have been longstanding members of Health and Wellness. So we have different levels of interaction, and Lori has also met with us. So
Okay.
we'll continue to share information, get as many people on board as we can, work with Lori, work with the coalition. Mr. Jett's working with the coalition. So I think there's a lot going on.
Okay.
We definitely won't leave you out of the loop.
Ms.
One more
Varela.
thing about what you said for the students' voices. In student government, we report on what we talk about at these meetings, and we'll definitely bring this up to maybe
Great.
try to, because we do like a big anti-bullying week and things like that. Maybe if we talked about doing like a anti-drug week or something like that, something to just like bring awareness to it. And also, when you mentioned the presentations, last year, I know this was really big when we had Chris Herron come to the high school and speak about his experience. I thought that was a really just like enlightening thing for every student at
Yep.
the high school, and it was talked about for a very long time. So things like that were very good, I think, for us.
And that's where the hospital has helped us in terms of
Yeah.
helping to pay for him. Guidance was involved in that, the Purple Shirt campaign from Chris Herron. People wore these purple shirts and talked
Yeah.
about it. So he's a great speaker and expensive, but a great speaker.
Ms. Padera.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out too, and I'm sure Kristen would attest to this as well, these are things, the Health and Wellness Committee's been working on these things, not just all of a sudden, but for many, many years. This survey was a great thing that the administration did, and it wasn't something we were required to do. It's something that, Health and Wellness wanted us to do. And so we did it, and it gave us some really good information, and so that we can fine tune some of the things we've already been working on. I know Assistant Superintendent Sheehan has been working on the elementary curriculum for health, or social emotional, which tackles health as well. And some of the things, and I think the survey just gave us more information so we can fine tune some of the things, but we're constantly working, and we've already been working with the coalition. They're part of our meeting, and the community leaders, and we have student leaders on health and wellness too that give us a student voice as well. So certainly this survey gives us more information, and that's what we were looking for, so that we can fine tune some of the things we already do. But it's not like we've just started to take action because of a survey. It's just that we've been working on things, and now we're going to find things like the Chris Heron presentation and other things we've done, and we're going to continue to fine tune that based on additional information we've got through the survey. So that's it.
Ms. Varela.
I also just want to commend you guys for doing the survey, and all the work, to echo what Becky said, all the work that you've been doing over the past years, and then, making the decision to put this out there. Because I know since the statistics came out, I don't know if the rest of you have, because you're a school committee member, have been approached by many people, many parents who sometimes you don't hear anything from, about wanting to, what can they do to help? So if there are focus groups, so I do think the survey was, sometimes people say they need a shot in the arm to kind of make, maybe, there won't be 40 people next time, maybe there's going to be more people to come up and work together as a community at large, so that if the coalition sponsors things, or together you sponsor things. So again, I think that the survey was very helpful in that regard, that, because again, parents play a big part in this, that it's both educating them and the student population. So I'm hoping that the different initiatives that you take, that the parent community will be much more responsive. So I think thank you for doing it.
So, Leroy, from your perspective, does it make sense to have Health and Wellness come back and report with the coalition sometime in January? Would that satisfy your? I think that makes a lot of sense. So if we can, we can point for that date, and we can work on it. Obviously, Kristen, it's whenever
And I think what we're trying to do with them, with Deborah Milbar and I, we're trying to figure out a town meeting. That would be our next focus, is to really get that town meeting, town hall meeting, off the ground. It's sometime soon.
Great.
So that would be. We'd be naturally working together anyway.
Great. Mr. Sullivan.
Well, I'm also a student leader, so I think it'd be a good idea to educate the freshmen on alcohol and marijuana use, just to show them the numbers too. I think that, I know because after Christmas time, it's all about midterms, helping them with midterms, but after that, I think we don't really have anything going on, so I could probably propose an idea what we can.
So student leaders could have some.
Yeah. Because we go into the homerooms for about 30 minutes or so, and we just help out the freshmen. So we'd have a presentation on that, and then do some activities with them.
That would be excellent.
During block period that you go?
Thank you. That's great. Okay. I'm writing that on my list of things to get done.
Okay. Anything else on this? Thank you, Kristen, very much for that. Next item on the agenda is the Finance Subcommittee report. Mr. Walker.
So, you want me to do this? I thought you were going to do.
I'll do my piece.
All right,
I'll do
great.
my piece first.
Thank
So
you.
my piece is this. We have been asked by the Warrant Committee and by the Town Administrator to present two preliminary budget numbers for their purposes in their work. One is a budget which would be a rollover of present staff and contractual and legal obligations. And the second is a needs-based budget that would reflect our priorities and our needs. With respect to that first budget, I would ask that those two numbers, they're not budgets, they're numbers, those two preliminary numbers be considered separately, and we consider the first, and that will be a discussion in which I will participate. The second number, as I understand it from Finance Subcommittee, includes a discussion of full-day kindergarten, and just to remind those of my issue on that, back in September, it occurred to me that I, in all likelihood, will have a kindergartner next year in the Milton Public Schools, and so given the fact that if there is tuition-free kindergarten, my family would have a financial benefit. There is a possibility of a conflict of interest there, and after consulting with the Ethics Commission, it seemed the best course was for me to recuse myself from determinations with respect to full-day kindergarten, and that's what I've done since September, and that's what I intend to continue to do. So I would participate in the discussion of the first number and then recuse myself from discussion of the second number, and Ms. Padera will take over as chair at that point. So did I touch all the bases?
That's
Leroy?
excellent.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, we have, as the chair has indicated, been reviewing quite a bit of information and have come to two budget numbers. As the chair has indicated, the first is commonly referred to as the rollover budget number, but that includes mandated contractual and legal obligations, and those increases that would be attendant to that. And that number is $42,436,500. And I would move that we approve that as the rollover number that has been requested by the warrant committee and by the selectmen.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded.
I'm sorry, can
Any
you just say the number again?
42,000,000.
Oh, okay, I thought that's what you said.
436,500.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? I would ask, and I'll ask the administration, perhaps, the superintendent or the assistant superintendent for business, just to describe that increase over last year's budget, what the number increase is over last year's budget, and what that consists of, what that increase consists of.
Assistant Superintendent Pavlicek will outline it, and I'll finish.
The net increase over last year's budget is $1,689,000, or 4.1% increase over last year. There are several factors involved in this. It begins by taking out those portions of the budget that were funded by one-time expenses in this past year. We backed them out at the start because those were non-recurring expenses. We built in the steps and lanes and an anticipated cost of living increase for all employees, because that's part of the mandate to do that. We have built in what we anticipate to be the additional expenses in special education costs, particularly the out-of-district placements, which we've seen an increase in this year, and we expect that to carry forward next year. There are two positions that were funded by one-time money in this current year's budget. They were described as interim positions as reading specialists for particular needs that had a short-term necessity. They have been backed out of this. There are, however, two positions in here that are new positions. They are both special education positions. They are both positions that provide services that are mandated under the terms of our students' IEPs. We have a second board-certified behavioral analyst. We've had one, and that person's obligations are completely maxed out at this point, and we are going to need another person next year. And we have a second special education position, primarily at middle school and high school, for students with language-based issues. Both of these positions are necessary under the terms of students' IEPs. They are both positions that, would we not hire someone to do them, we would have to contract for these services from an outside vendor, which would actually cost more money than hiring the individuals to do it. So we consider these in the framework of contractual obligations, as we have in prior budgets where we were asked to provide this sort of information, that these are not positions that we would like to have, these are positions that we truly need to have in one fashion or another. So those are the major features into it. Most of the other services in here are not large. If you look at the non-salary expenditures at less than 1% increase. This is, as I say, it's a 4.1% increase over this year. And it is primarily based in just the expenses of our staff and a few costly expenses such as out-of-district tuitions.
I would just add, Assistant Superintendent Pavlicek eloquently outlined the budget. We work with the Finance Subcommittee and we communicate with the Warrant Committee, and so that the discussions around those one-time funds, we were very careful to remove those from the budget. And the positions in special education, I think it's important for the viewing public to know that the PCG will be bringing forward the evaluation of the special ed program in draft to the school committee this month, and then to the public in January. In their first exit interviews with us, the work that we do with the CPAC, the work that we do internally, and PCG's initial suggestions about staff. Mr. Walker talks about what they're doing nationally. They travel across the country, they evaluate special education programs, and so there's an agreement on the positions that are prioritized. And I call them, as Assistant Superintendent Pavlicek said, I call them bills. The BCBA, I call an IEP a contract that we have with the child's family. We would have to contract out. And the language-based, we have a program at the elementary, a program at the high school, and this will, again, eliminate any children having to go out of district. We'll be able to match the quality of any program with those two positions internally. But they're like bills, and those special ed programs are essential.
So I think it's fair to say that this is a bare bones number that allows the district to roll over existing staff and meet legal and contractual obligations.
Yes.
Fair to say? Anything further on this?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please,
So
Ms.
then
Bailey.
therefore, this list is in here or is not
No,
in here?
this would be the second number.
Got it.
Anything further? All those in favor? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
So now with the discussion of the second requested number, I will recuse myself, and the best practice on that is to actually leave the room, so I'll go behind the curtain, go to the room behind the curtain, and hope that you call me back when you're done. Ms. Padera, you're in charge.
Do I need a gavel?
You-
Just in case, it could, you never know.
Only if you have to gavel somebody down.
Exactly.
I just have a quick question.
Yes.
And this, it's not for discussion, but you know how you talked about the BCBA and the special ed teacher for kids around the language fund? If we had a huge wish list, would there be other positions, special ed positions you'd want to add to keep kids in district?
That's a great lead into the next presentation.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And so hold
Well
on to
done.
that question.
I just was curious.
And we'll elaborate on that. It's a great lead in. You've listened.
Mr. Walker?
Thank you. So the next figure that I'm going to move approval on is our contingent budget number. And I want to talk first about the process that we used to arrive at this number. We looked at a much broader range of priorities and needs that should be included in a contingent budget. Those actually fall into 4 categories: restoration of prior reductions, increased learning opportunities for targeted populations, enhanced learning opportunities for all students, and full-day kindergarten. Under restoration of prior reductions, and we went back and looked at reductions both very recently and some not so recent that would be helpful in moving the district forward. And you've heard us talk about moving the district forward in terms of the advancement budget. This is a much broader look at moving the district forward. So, at the elementary level, restore art, music, PE, and health to 45 minutes per week at all grades at a cost of $62,000 and 1 FTE. Currently, many elementary students only have 30 minutes of each of those. Restore the history teacher at the middle school, which completely restores the team structure at the middle school at a cost of $62,000 and 1 FTE. Restore the vice principal. We had gone from a vice principal to a dean. We're restoring that position to the vice principal level because that allows the vice principal to be involved in the evaluation of teachers, which under the new teacher evaluation model is a substantial responsibility for the principal at the middle school. That's $25,000 in cost. And increase the nursing support across the district, add additional hours of emergency nursing coverage at a cost of $6,700. So in that category, we have 2 FTEs and a total cost of $155,700. Second category, as I said, is increasing the learning opportunities for targeted populations. This, at the elementary level, includes 2 additional SPED teachers for the co-taught grades 4 and 5, and those teachers are currently half-time, so that makes them full-time in each of those grades. That's 2 FTEs, as I said, at a cost of $124,000. And across the district, extended learning time for the targeted subgroups and enrichment opportunities that those individuals require. And that harkens back to much of what we heard several school committee meetings ago about what some of the testing data is telling us about the needs in that area. And that's a cost of $50,000. So in that particular category, 2 FTEs at a cost of $174,000. Important to have some learning opportunities enhanced for all students, and that is addressed by a math specialist at the elementary level that would be able to provide additional elementary mathematics support and expertise. That's 1 FTE at a cost of $62,000. And then finally, full-day kindergarten, tuition-free, which requires 2 things. It requires us to include $150,000 in recurring cost, and it requires that the town and the selectmen support the use of $950,000 of our free cash in order to cover the first-year cost. And let me just say a little bit about that. As it turns out, if we move to tuition-free, that actually increases the Chapter 70 reimbursement that we receive, but since that reimbursement is a year behind, that is, you request the reimbursement and you get it the following year, that initial first-year cost is $1.1 million. So if we receive the $950,000 in one-time money, and we will include the $150,000 in recurring costs, that will get us through the first year. After that, we believe that the Chapter 70 reimbursement will place us in good stead. So those total 5 FTEs overall and $541,700. That takes us to a total budget figure, a contingent budget figure of $42,978,200, and that is approximately a 5.5% increase overall. So with that, I move approval of that figure.
Second. Oh, sorry, I forgot that I was in charge. Kristen Bailey Jones.
And I forget what you said about the first number, the 42 number. That increase was what?
That was 4.1.
That was 4.1, and then this one is 5.5.
5.4 overall.
Bring it up to 5.5.
5.5 overall.
Right, this second number is, say it
So-
again?
Second, $42,978,200.
Right, but what was that percentage?
5.5%
Okay.
overall.
Okay, so the overall is either 4.1 or 5. Okay. And then I had a couple of questions about the reductions. So we talked, I was,
Additions.
nope, I have questions about the prior reductions.
Okay.
So we talked, we had some from before, and one of them which I had come and presented to the Finance Subcommittee about the restoring the health, the K-12 health PE, not the social emotional learning director, because that would have been new, but the way that the PE health person used to be separate position from the athletic director. And I understand that it's not on restorations of prior reductions, but I want to put it out there that still is a loss for us that has been true for a long time, that two positions were combined into one. So that was on a list from before. It's not on this list, and I don't want it to get forgotten about because I'll come back next year and ask for it again. I think it's a lost position, so I just want to put that out there. And then the other question I had, and I don't know who would know this, maybe Glenn or Mary, the extended learning time for targeted subgroups, did we have grant money or gift money at one point for any of that for the Saturday program?
That was primarily funded through the advancement budget for the last couple of years.
Yeah, a while back. Did we ever have any MFE money or hospital money?
No, what we did have was a partnership with a program in town, a tutorial program.
Oh, okay.
That,
Steve Shapiro.
yes,
Okay.
math, targeted
Right.
around math, and we used the Pierce School,
Mhm.
and that source was eliminated, but that's a
Got it.
great question.
Okay.
But we have our data specialist using baseline data on all of the students and tracking the progress of the after-school, the Saturday, the summer, and the vacation programs for those extended day experiences.
So then we'll be able to assess if
Yes.
that's actually helping, okay.
And just to say, we also had the Reebok box grant for a while.
That's what I was.
It's
yeah,
for school as well.
That's right. I knew there was some grant or gift money in there.
And in the spirit of full disclosure, Tucker is a Title I school, and some of their extended day we can pay for
Got it.
through Title I funds.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Questions?
I have others, but I can wait.
Go ahead. Ms. Bagley-Jones?
So the math specialist coaches in each building, so one position will give us, Mary, is that gives us one coach for elementary or adds?
Well, so, very briefly, I think for people new to the process, they should know that we meet with the administrative team of 25 department heads and principals, and we work in collaboration with the finance subcommittee. And so they bring forward what are the positions that will move the district ahead. And so then we go to finance subcommittee, we go back to the leadership team, just as of yesterday afternoon, meeting with the principals. And so you had mentioned earlier, Ms. Bagley-Jones, this is the list working collaboratively with the finance subcommittee. There were two math specialists, which would give each school a 0.5 math specialist. I said to Mr. Walker, I actually was at a large public meeting last year when a parent actually brought these positions up. They're comparable to our reading specialists, but they would really drive math instruction. Again, we have to prioritize. We said the other budget was a bare bones budget. We could double this list with what came forward from the principals and department heads. We prioritized, and every one of these positions will move the Milton Public School ahead. There were two math specialists, and that would give each elementary school a 0.5. And because we work as collaboratively with the finance subcommittee and the town, these are the essential positions. Did we want two? Yes, we wanted two. What did we put forward? We put forward one position.
Okay, so now, if we got this one position, how many math coaches would we have on the
One.
elementary? One. That's what I thought
For
you were
4
saying.
elementary schools, but I couldn't miss the opportunity to say.
No, I'm glad.
and
I'm
brought
glad.
forward,
I'm glad.
if
That's
each
why I
school
was-
had a 0.5,
Right.
it would be a very effective model. So you know that the list was longer and the needs were real, but these are essential positions and very important to the entire district.
Anybody else?
Ms.
So
Bagley
on
notes?
the original list, we also talked about an additional adjustment counselor.
So in the
what
world
happened
of
to that?
adjustment counselors, at each elementary school, we have an adjustment counselor. At the middle and high, we have 1.5 adjustment counselors. We talk about social emotional learning, and these are skilled, qualified, certified individuals who have a skill set that's very unique, and they are integral to the success of our students. And so we had an adjustment counselor, which would then give the middle and the high 2 adjustment counselors. One now travels between the middle and high. But again, we were asked to prioritize, and that was at the top of, the list that after we had to prioritize. So there was an adjustment counselor on the list, Ms. Bagley-Jones.
And I guess the reason I ask about it too is just thinking about the results of the youth risk behavior survey, thinking about the depression. I mean, you know how much I think the guidance and adjustment counselors do a fantastic job, but it's a lot of kids. So I just want to, keep that out in the forefront. And then my last question is, and you probably said this and I missed it, on the full day K, the amount was $850 and now it's $950, if we had $950 available?
Well, do you want to talk to that, or?
Right, because we asked Dr. Pavlicek to look at the recurring cost. It was $850 and $250, but
Right.
that was because we thought the recurring cost would be as high as $250. Dr. Pavlicek looked at it and assured us that with $150K, that would be sufficient, so we reduced it.
The total cost is the same.
Total cost is the same.
I would, now that I think about it, like either Mr. Walker or Dr. Pavlicek, just for the viewing audience, can you just explain again about how to implement full day K, how towns have to sort of take an initial hit, and then this is why, why we kind of have to go after that $950 free cash, and just so some people might not fully understand that, maybe just to speak to it one more time.
Mr. Pavlicek, Dr. Pavlicek, would you like to talk about math?
Talked about
Yeah.
The reason that we need this 1 year money is because Chapter 70 reimbursement is reimbursed the following year. So when we move to tuition-free kindergarten, that will actually increase the Chapter 70 reimbursement, but only the following year. So we do without tuition, which is an expense, so we have to cover the cost of the expense of the program, which in total is about $1.1 million.
Thank you.
I think just to add, so it's the reason that, and Mr. Pavlicek would surely like to correct me if I'm wrong on it, but the students in our kindergarten program, since we charge tuition, are counted as half students, all of them, right?
Correct.
And when we don't charge them tuition, they would be counted as full students, correct?
Correct.
And that's why the reimbursement goes up. Any other discussion? Dr. Donahue.
So, thank you for bringing that up. That dovetails into a couple comments that I wanted to make. And the first was that, again, for our reviewing public, that this contingent budget, as we're calling it, isn't, I just want to make the point that it's not being driven by the tuition-free full-day kindergarten issue, that is a component of it, but it should be known that the reason that we're having this conversation is not exclusively because of that, but a number of these other priorities which we have identified. And I'd like to thank the administration for their data-driven decision-making in terms of targeting resources, potential future resources, servicing what is a quite broad spectrum of our pupils, not just at at one level, the elementary level or the middle school level or just the high school level, but using data to sort of address throughout the district priorities, but they do seem to fall across the spectrum. And my final comment that I'll make goes a little bit back to the earlier number that we had talked about, the $42,400,000 or so. and how that represents a roughly 4% increase from years previous. And just to put that into context, that is concordant with several years previous. It's, some years were higher, some years were lower, but it is sort of within, as we talked about earlier, that bare bones budget is within the spectrum of where we've been operating for the past several years. Again, to give people context when they discuss these numbers outside of this room.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I think probably the closing comment that we should add is that this contingent budget and these priorities, which as Dr. Donahue has said, address a broad range of challenges, can only be funded if there's an override.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? It's unanimous. You go again.
Well done, Chair.
Oh, thank you. I think our next, as Mr. Zulus makes his way to the table to discuss approval of minutes, which I would think he would never want to miss.
Can I just, while
Yes.
the transition is happening?
Yes, oh, welcome back.
The gavel, the golden gavel. I just wanted to ask a question when Mike was back in the room, not about the budgets, but about the next steps. So still on finance?
Sure.
Okay. So as we go further into the process, as we know, we've been doing this for a while, there's going to be a schedule of upcoming meetings with, warrant committee, selectmen, Saturday meetings. We're going to, I assume, have parent meetings that are happening. It would be really helpful in January to talk about the budget. It'd be really helpful to get a sense of what that's looking like as we go into this very busy time of year. And then the other thing is that I was able to go to the finance subcommittee meeting the other night, and I had been asking if we could try to poll members, or somebody else might have offered that idea, to see if there are other times that the finance subcommittee can meet. And since we can't have circular emails about it or circular phone calls about it, the only place really to talk about it is here, in terms of, can we get some more finance subcommittee meetings, additional ones? And if so, can we get them scheduled because we're in December?
So, let me unpack that. In terms of getting dates in January, certainly, we've done that in the past, and certainly we will. And I will tell you that, I think it was just today or yesterday, the chair of the warrant committee asked if we could come in December, which we have done before.
Right. Do you
Come
know?
initially in December.
December 17th?
Could be the 17th, that's the date that's been thrown out there, but, so that's not set in stone, but that's the initial date that was thrown out there, I think just today, I think I talked to him just today. So that's that. In terms of finance subcommittee, hopefully we could take scheduling offline. I mean, really, you can certainly schedule meetings offline, not talk about substance, but you can certainly schedule meetings offline. So I'd like to, rather than take the time here to schedule, hopefully we can do that offline. We did it before with the meeting on Monday, so hopefully we can do that offline.
But to echo that, would the easiest way to do that, though, I mean, I think it was that if we can put when our availabilities are, and then if Charlene can then post it, and then we can agree to it.
I think it's up to
practice?
Yeah, I think it's up to the finance subcommittee to work that out. So
Okay.
if they know the dates and times, let's let them do it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I have a little bit of a different take on it, is that last time Charlene, we were supposed to send things to Charlene. So whose responsibility is that to ask Charlene to do it? I don't want to ask her, I'm not on the finance subcommittee meeting. So that's why I'm putting it out there.
Right.
I put my schedule out there.
Right.
Okay, that would be my cue, I guess. So this is a repeat of a discussion we had Monday night. And the approach will be that we have a regular schedule for the finance subcommittee, which we will hold to, and we will do our best in those instances where an additional meeting is needed to schedule an additional meeting that as many members who wish to attend can attend.
So the finance
Ms. Bagley Jones,
subcommittee
yep.
meetings will remain Mondays at 9 no matter what?
As you heard me say at several previous school
And
committee
I
meetings.
would probably ask again and again, 'cause
As you heard me say at several previous school committee meetings, the difficulty that we had over the summer trying to schedule meetings was significant. We were finally able to settle on a schedule that worked for both finance subcommittee members. I think we should continue to honor that schedule because it was the schedule that it was clear worked for both finance subcommittee members who need to be present for there to be a meeting at all. And as is evidenced by our ability to schedule the Monday night meeting, it's also possible to schedule, with some difficulty, by the way. In that case, there was another member who wanted to attend who couldn't attend. But it is possible to schedule additional meetings. So that's what we'll do. But so we'll keep the regular schedule and we'll try to schedule additional meetings as needed.
Oh, Ms. Bagley
So,
Jones.
and as you've had several conversations, I've had several conversations too, we have a month in December to figure out this budget. We're in an override year. I find it incredible that we're stuck at only Mondays at 9. Just keep your Mondays at 9, but add additional meetings now. We're in December. We have a meeting on the 17th, we think. That's 3 weeks away. So how do we plan for those other meetings? I personally felt like I could vote on these two budgets tonight because I got to go to the finance subcommittee meeting on Monday. And honestly, there was differences in what we talked about Monday, as there should be, and then the recommendations that were made by the finance subcommittee. I would not have been privy to that conversation if I had not been able to attend the finance subcommittee meeting. So I am I am saying this is really important to me as a school committee member in an override year, that there is as much access to the finance subcommittee meetings as possible. And I would ask for some flexibility. I would ask for some additional times. I think I put out 9 different times of the week that I could meet.
Okay.
And it's not just about me, but I'm not speaking for anyone else. They can speak for themselves.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that the finance subcommittee has been flexible, and they've tried, and I think as expressed, they'll continue to do that. And in terms of having discussions replayed and reported, that can be done. I mean, certainly the finance subcommittee can replay and report what was said at finance subcommittee, and we can have the discussion here if need be. But it seems to me that the finance subcommittee has done it, and they're committed to continue to keep doing it, so.
I would have to respectfully disagree.
Okay,
There's been one meeting that's been at a different time.
okay,
2.
okay.
It's a really important year.
I'm not sure what it is you're disagreeing with, because in the one instance so far where it was requested that we schedule a meeting at a different time, we did it. So what is it you're disagreeing with? Has there ever been an instance where you have requested an additional meeting and
I've
that didn't
requested
happen?
that there be other meeting times, and gave several suggestions, but was told the only time was Monday at 9. So the Monday meeting at 7 was very helpful. I went to one other meeting, I think it was in the day, but it was a day that I could actually get there.
I think we moved that time as well for you.
Is that a problem?
No, but my point is, each time you've asked thus far, we've done it.
Okay, so
So what is it you're disagreeing?
asking-
What is it you're respectfully disagreeing with? That we haven't been flexible?
the finance subcommittee meetings, you two are the finance subcommittee, but we all sign off on the budget. There is a lot of advocacy that has to be done on the budget. I do not feel educated enough about what finance subcommittee talks about unless I'm at the meeting. So, given that Mondays at 9 are the only possible time in the entire week for you two to meet, it makes it very difficult for other members to be there. And I think this is really crucial time of year for there to be as many folks involved in the finance subcommittee. I'm talking about the next month. talking about December, and we're already in December, and one of those weeks is Christmas. So you're going to meet Monday morning, when are we going to come up with another time? Then we're in the third week of December. December's gone by.
Yeah, so I think they've done it before. They've had 2 meetings at different times, and they're going to continue to try to do it. So I think we can, you know, based on past performance and expectation, we can assume that that's going to be done, and we're going to do our best to meet everybody's schedules.
I just have one question, so about the December 17th. So at the December 17th meeting that you have at the Warrant Committee, are they going to give you at that meeting?
It is unclear at this time what is going to happen at that meeting.
Okay,
It's a preliminary meeting with
Okay, so-
the Warrant Committee, and we haven't worked out what that's going to entail at this point. That was a date that was thrown out as an initial meeting
Okay.
with the school committee.
Okay, so, but at the same time, you know, right now, tonight, like, so tonight, we voted what we'd call our non-contingent number and our contingent number. But with our non-contingent number, that's without an override, what we want.
It's
But-
actually not a non-contingent number.
Okay, what is
That's-
it?
Yeah, that is a contractually based
Yeah,
rollover of staff number. That's
Right.
not the non-contingent number. If there is a non-contingent number, that will depend on revenue, and the revenue's not in. So that number, if the revenue doesn't come in, that number will be less, and there would be associated cuts to that number.
all right, so I guess what my
So-
query is that, so that's what my query is about next steps. So
Yep.
it would be my understanding that, from the Warren Committee, you would be given the intel of, if we don't have an override passed, this is what you guys have to deal with, and this is what your ballpark budget's looking like.
Yes.
So then, you know, work it out, make your cuts, decide what you're gonna do. So with that, that's my concern, where I do, and I am very respectful of the Mondays at 9 situation, and I'll try to make some, whatever, but again, I think that we have a short time frame of when the administration will decide, you know, based on what the Warren Committee gives us, for what would be considered a non-contingent budget, of what next year would look like if an override does not pass. But before we go out to the parent community, where we visit the PTOs and present to get their feedback, I do think that it would be good to have as many of us at, 1 or 2, so I'm thinking like, that's why I'm saying, like, I guess maybe we'd plan to go out in February, if you're not gonna find out what that ballpark number is from the Warren Committee until right before Christmas, if it's the 17th or the 20th or whatever it ends up being. But if we could just look at our schedules in January, because, so that even if, it's discussed on that Monday at 9, but we need an additional one, because I think that's really important for us to flesh out, to ask questions about, at a meeting that's strictly focused on the budget, where these meetings are very long, and, they can go on forever, some nights it seems like, and it's important to get as many of us at that. And I'm only echoing it because it is an override year. It's been a long time since we had an override. And this year, the finance subcommittee, and I commend you for guys stepping up to it, but it's gonna be more work than ever, because it's an override year. And we have to think about that. So when the time comes for those cuts to be made, I really would like an additional time as well, so that as many of us can make at least the 9 o'clock or the other one, and that the chairs and the administration can get our feedback on, it's just feedback, but I think it's important feedback, because we all have our strengths and weaknesses on this committee, of where those cuts should be before we present to the parent community at large for their feedback. And that's all. So I'm sure it will work out. But I just ask that we all realize that it's going to take a little bit more time in our schedules, I think, because of the fact that it is an override budget year. So that's all.
The only thing I'd say is we've had that process every year. We've had the process where we have to go through potential cuts. It's important every year.
Right.
It takes a lot of time every year.
Right.
We've done it every year, and we're going to do it this year, too. And we'll do whatever it takes. And we'll do whatever it takes to make sure everybody's comfortable, whether that's trying to schedule another meeting, whether that's making sure you have more materials and more spreadsheets from the administration that show all the detail and that you have enough time to review all of that. We'll make sure that that happens.
Okay, great.
But, you know, I think there was a lot of effort that went into making sure that we were comfortable making these votes tonight. And you can be assured that that effort will happen going forward.
That's great. That will be good. Thank you.
Another question is, when is the reduction list being made? Or the cut list, as we've called it?
Well,
'Cause this is an override year, Mike. Other years it's been made, but it hasn't been an override year in a while. This is an override year, and it's pretty important to know what those possible cuts could be.
Right, well, we can't talk about cuts until we know what the revenue numbers are, because we don't know.
So I'm asking for when that schedule would look like.
So the best information that we have from the warrant committee is, I almost said the warrant commission, the warrant committee is that we'll have those numbers within the next week or two. That's the best information we have from the warrant committee.
Okay, so once
So-
we get the revenue from the warrant committee.
Then we'll know what we have to hit.
Yeah.
And then we can start talking about a non-contingent number.
Okay.
Tonight, it is not a non-contingent
Absolutely.
number.
Absolutely.
Then we can talk, and Dr. Pavlicek may want to have something else.
And just to also put in that not all town departments have yet to submit their budgets.
Right.
So it's a question about looking at the requests on both of these levels from all the departments versus the expected revenue, and then determining what the difference is, and then deciding how much of the difference is likely to be attributable to schools or not, and so forth. So there are several steps involved. At this point, with a warrant committee meeting potentially in 2 weeks, I'll tell you frankly, what I'm going to be working on is creating the budget books that we present to the warrant committee every year, which is they'd like a detailed book, and I tried to provide them with one, but it's going to take pretty much the next 2 weeks just to present that and to put together a reasonable, PowerPoint of how it is that we're going from fiscal 16 to what we're proposing for fiscal 17, what the drivers are, what are the pieces that we're asking for above and beyond. It's just another layer. But it's going to take some, that's going to be the focus of the next 2 weeks, really, realistically, is to try to get ready for the warrant committee. And then, initially, there'll be discussions within the administration about where cuts should be. And those, as we follow the standard process of bubbling it up through the principals and administrators and bringing it to the school committee, it's going to take a few steps to get there. This is not something we're likely to have done before we go for the holiday break. I mean, there's a lot to be done between now and then. But I mean, the groundwork should be set forward. We should know the ballpark we're playing in around the time of the next warrant committee meeting, I would say.
So I remember at the beginning of the year, or whenever it was, Roy did a very nice job with the schedule, accelerated budget schedule, I think you called it, something like that. I still have it somewhere in my pile. And that was really helpful. If we could get another accelerated schedule, because when I look at my calendar, next week's December 7th, then it's December 14th, then it's December 17th, which is when they're meeting, then it's December 21st. So in terms of the holiday season, that's a pretty short time. So another sort of, maybe Dr. Pavlicek could help with that, of what's happening when, that would be really helpful.
Let me address that.
Mr. Walker.
So two things are different, as you said, and this is an override year. And the selectmen and the warrant committee are collaborating on development of this master spreadsheet, which is the one that, as Dr. Pavlicek has indicated, once all the expenses are in, that is, the budgets are in, then the town accountant and the warrant committee will say, okay, so here's our best guess on what the gap is, and then we'll have more information to we'll have the information we need to start this process. But all of that is to say, so that the schedule that I developed is now out the window.
Right, no, I.
Because it assumed that that would occur a lot earlier. So happy to do a revised schedule, but it'll look different and probably, as we've said, will extend into January.
That would be helpful to get, thank you.
Okay, on we go. Approval of minutes. October 21st minutes. I'll move for approval of the October 21st minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all is in favor? It is unanimous. All right. No old business or citizen speak topic response. Next, meeting agenda items.
The Collycott Site Council that I've rescheduled and come up with a new schedule for all the site councils is coming.
Okay.
All looking forward to reporting to the school committee, all the site councils.
Okay. All right. And we will segment out plenty of time for budget discussion on that evening as well. Anything else?
If I might,
Ms. Gorman.
did you want facilities? I think you had asked for facilities
I
at that second.
mentioned that last time. It
Good.
was in the minutes.
Okay,
Oh, it
good.
was for tonight?
No.
No.
Oh,
The
for next,
second
for the
December one.
16th.
We have
Yes,
that
we
on
have
the
that on the
tentative
agenda. We have that on the agenda.
And policy.
Yes, I'll forward you the policies that will be considered.
Policies one, depending on if we have site council, if we have another athletic team, if we have a long budget discussion, do you think a policy could be deferred, or do you think it's something
It
time
probably
sensitive?
could be deferred. I'm not anticipating a large number of policies either, so as those trickle in the next few days, we can make the discussion whether to have make the decision whether to have a truncated conversation or defer the conversation.
Okay, great.
And the charms vote,
The charms vote.
that has to be done within this month.
That has to be done this month, okay.
Can I ask a question on that, Mary? Can you get us the information of the collaboratives
Absolutely.
ahead of
that will
time so we
interest
can vet them a little bit?
Yeah, that was the idea, actually, Kristen, to try to frame it tonight, so we don't get cold with it when we have to vote.
Right. That would be great.
Okay. So, no citizen speak, and now I will move to adjourn for the purpose of going into executive session, not to return to public session, for the purpose of discussion negotiation strategy with, discussion of negotiation strategy with the unions, a discussion of which in open session could be detrimental to the district's position, and approval of minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. This is a roll call vote. Ms. Varela?
Yes.
Ms. Bagley-Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Zulish, yes. Ms. Padera?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Dr. Donahue?
Yes.
Yes, we are adjourned for the purposes of public session, and we will see you all on December 16th. Thank you very much.